of KUAM.
You're watching Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of the Buzz. Exciting show tonight. I have, of course, you've heard of Jungle Watch. There's been close to just about 10,000 shy of 2,000 or 2 million pages viewed, and should accomplish that by the end of the month. We have none other than the administrator of Jungle Watch, is of course Mr. Tom Rohr. Tim, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for the invite.
Hey, it's always a pleasure, and belated Happy New Year to you and your family.
Thank you. You too.
The apostolic visit that happened here last week, you and I had spoken in the radio numerous times. You were a guest on my show here about 2 months ago, and you personally tried to get an audience with the folks from the Vatican that came here, the apostolic visitors that were here. You were informed by the Chancery that there was not any slots left. They were allowing only about 15 minutes per, I guess, visitor or group of visitors at the time. So you weren't booked for an audience. But from what I gather, you're telling me that the visitors, Vatican visitors, personally called you, and you had over an hour meeting with them.
I did. I had called for an appointment. I didn't expect to get one. I had heard earlier that day that there was plenty of slots, but when I called, there was no slots, and not surprised. Then later on, I was able to access a copy of the schedule and found out that it was just stuffed with the Archbishop's supporters and really nobody from our side with any kind of and so I said, well, I think these guys are smart enough. They'll figure out what's going on. And I didn't worry about it. Now, what I had done was I had emailed the nuncio, Archbishop Krebs, earlier, got him a letter basically saying, look, everything that I know is already known. It's on my blog. In fact, my blog is probably the reason why you're coming. So I don't have anything new to share with you. But if I can be of any assistance, please feel free to call me. Well, Thursday morning, I got a call from this Father Nowak and asking if I would be willing to meet with them. And I said, sure. So I met with them on Friday morning. And altogether, I was there with them for about an hour and 20 minutes.
And it wasn't in any of the announced scheduled visit or places, right? It was a private meeting that you had with them. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now let me ask, because you know, I mean, we have the alphabet, it's 26 letters of the alphabet, A through Z. You can go in regards to your posting and the situations, and you've got everything that you said, you substantiated with black and white. They say, you know, I can't believe it unless I see it in black and white. Okay, and have been, even from, I guess the Chancery has been even disputing black and white.
Right.
But anyway, that said, what did the apostolic visitors, what do they want to know from Tom Rohr? Because I was watching your blog actually while they were here, and you were talking to them.
Right.
You were talking to them through your blog.
Right.
And they were monitoring.
Yes.
So what do they want to know from Tom Rohr that they didn't already know from the blog? They just want to put a face to the blog?
I can tell you what they asked me,
Okay.
And then I can kind of guess at what they really wanted to know. They really wanted to know my motivations, and I'll get to that. But they started off, and first of all, I want to say they were very kind, very warm to me, and very just open and wanting to know me and everything. So it was good, very nice from the start. And they asked me, what are 3 things that you think are wrong with this archdiocese? And I named them. Bullying by the church leaders, especially bullying priests. Second, lying, and I called it lying. And third, neglect. And then they asked me to give examples, and so I did. I gave example of the bullying of Father Paul, the bullying of Monsignor James, because regardless of whether or not these men were actually guilty of whatever they were accused of, to be dragged out and beat up in public like that, that's bullying. Okay? And the Archbishop is supposed to be a father to these men. So it's like me taking my son out in the public square, okay, and whipping him so everybody could see, or yelling at him or screaming at him or whatever. So that's the equivalent of that. And then just like a minor, a son, you know, a priest has really no life outside the bishop. He doesn't have the ability to practice his priesthood. He doesn't have the ability to support himself. He has absolutely zero. So for a bishop to treat a priest that way was just beyond the pale. So, and that's what got my goat up in the first place, was this bullying thing. And I doesn't matter who bullies. I just hate bullying. You know, bottom line. But then the lies started to come, and I wasn't afraid to call them lies because they were demonstrable. We were able to prove absolutely everything, including this whole thing they made up, the Archbishop made up about the Mr. Lastimosa and all that. We were able to disprove all of that later on, and but it just kept going. And lie after lie after lie. Now, I want to say this, and this is what I told the visitors. I am willing to call Archbishop Apparon a liar because he put his name on these things, okay? And because he's the Archbishop and he has the ability to stop it. But I don't think he's the one coming up with any of it. I think he's reading a script, and that he's under the control of what I call the neo-catechumenal masters, the people that run this place, the Father Pius and the Giuseppe Giannarinis and all these people that have been pulling strings here. But that sadly the Archbishop is in their clutches and he is just told what to do. So it doesn't excuse the Archbishop because he's responsible. But when I say lie or liar, okay, he's responsible for it, but I don't think he's making up any of this, which is kind of even sadder because that means our diocese is really in trouble because it's not even in control of the Archbishop. And so I went through several lies, especially about the Redemptoris Mater Seminary and all of these things about that. And also then, I talked about Aaron Kittigwa, about his, you know, being denied and told that they didn't have the money for him, and then he comes up with the money and they still won't. It's just amazing. Then about the two seminaries, and then finally on the neglect side. And I essentially kind of laid into the fact that in the 30 years, the 3 decades of Archbishop Apparon's reign, we have seen almost a complete collapse of Guam society. You know, we have an abortion almost every day, 60% of which are Chamorro babies, which means they're probably Catholic. We have the highest divorce rate in the whole world. We have 10 times the child abuse rate of the rest of the United States. We have 2.5 times the suicide rate. And I listed them all, and then I handed him a document that showed all the proofs for all of that. There was some resistance to that, just saying, well, Guam's been very secularized like the rest of the Western world. And I just stopped them right there and I basically said, Archbishop, I believe that as the church goes, so goes the world. Don't you? You know, and I kind of left it at that. Because I'm just not going to accept that it's the world, right? You know, and they kind of left it at that. We moved on. So anyway, the bullying, the lying, and the neglect, and so I kind of ripped that off, and we had quite a bit of talk about that. Then they kind of got into like, you know, why are you doing this? You know, I mean, what's your motivation? What's your background, and so on. And that's when I decided to do some name dropping. And because I've been around, and I explained how back in 1977, my father and I went to the Bishop of Los Angeles, the Archbishop of Los Angeles at the time, Cardinal Timothy Manning. We didn't get to see him, but we saw the auxiliary bishop because we had a complaint about our own pastor. This is back in the days before anybody was talking about pedophilia or child abuse or whatever, but it was happening in our parish. And not only that, our pastor was actually supporting a boyfriend with parish funds and was involved in a sexual relationship with him. And of course, it was a scandal to the church and so on. So we thought the bishop would want to know. So we went down to my dad. I was 18 years old at the time. And they slammed the door in our face and told us to get the hell out. For me, then at that moment, I became a warrior. But my dad, he collapsed because 8th grade education, Catholic, raised in Ohio in the old way where everything is the church. And when the church treats you like that, there's just no church. See, I could see past it, but my dad couldn't. His faith collapsed, and that was back in 1977, and he never saw a priest again, never went to Mass again until 3 days before he died, just this last February. Wow. And there was a complete collapse of my family because he lost his faith, and all kinds of, our family suffered quite a bit from that. And I wanted the visitors to know what happens when, you know, bishops gone wild. And because really, it's Rome's job to keep these guys in control. And when you don't do your job, this is the kind of stuff that happens. So I told him, you know, so I told him about that. And then I also let him know that Well, another episode when I was a teacher in the Virgin Islands, and I asked them, do you know Cardinal Sean O'Malley? And they said, well, yeah, because he's kind of a famous person. He's a Cardinal of Boston. And I said, you ask him why he was assigned to the Virgin Islands back in 1985. And they kind of looked at me a little bit, because back then there was a bishop who was protecting a principal in a Catholic high school who was blackmailed because of his own personal situations, blackmailed by a Chicago mob, Chicago-based mob group that was actually operating a drug ring in school.
In school.
And what do you call it? Extorting the kids of money, and when they didn't pay up, they got killed. And a student came to my classroom one morning and asked, told me, he says, you know, they're going to kill me tomorrow. What are you talking about? Well, then I got into all this and I found out this was going on. Well, it took me 6 months I didn't know if they were going to shoot me next. But anyway, the bishop and the principal, everybody was gone in the end, including me, because I had to flee for my life.
Yeah.
I wanted these visitors to know that this isn't some just personal thing that I don't like Archbishop Apron for whatever, but that I've seen lives destroyed because Rome hasn't done their job, and I basically told them that, you know, I mean, not them personally, but their offices need to pay attention, because I know that for 30 years, letters have been going to Rome about the problems here. And nothing. And then I told them, I said, the only reason why you're here is because this blew up in the press. Sure. And the only reason why it blew up in the press is because of what I did, all right? And it's sad that it had to actually come to this. And I was trying to get the message across to them that you just can't neglect. You have to respond. You know, you can't say thank you for your letter and go away. So,
now, Tim, let me ask you this, because you know, you say this and other people say this as well, that part of why this was being done, or even the RMS up in Jonia there, was to I mean, it was run by somebody else, the Generinis, I guess, you know, and the like, I guess, that are doing this, and supposedly they have some connections in Rome, but also for Archbishop, in the sense that he's able to produce priests, right? Able to produce priests, and these are feathers on his cap to be able to get that red cap, as in to being again a cardinal, and obviously it looks like as a result of all this that he was bypassed for this. But I tell you, before you answer that, I got to go on a break and pay some bills, and you can get to that.
Okay.
Be right back with Tim Rohr.